Hi guys, I just wanted to jump on here and show you how I'm doing some stockings. I had an order to embroider some names on stockings, and sometimes they can be kind of tricky to hoop. So I wanted to show you guys how I float them and just kind of my process start to finish. So I'm going to be using this frame from the 8-in-1 magnetic hoops from Buy. I will not be using the magnetic top for this. I'll be using it just like a fast frame. So if you're not familiar with the Buy version with the magnets, don't even worry about it. If you have fast frames, you're probably familiar with what this looks like. Make sure that you always install it with the groove going down so that it doesn't bounce. If you do this way, it's upside down and it'll bounce. So, okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is find my center on the stocking. So how I do that, I'm actually gonna use some chalk, I'm trying to think, Taylor's chalk, I guess is what it's called. So we're just gonna go ahead and find the center. So I'm gonna go use my big ruler here. It's 5 inches, oh, actually it's 6 inches. So we're gonna go ahead and mark it at 3, and it's 8 inches wide. So we're gonna go to 3 and 4 here. I like to use this chalk sometimes because it just brushes right off and you don't even know it's there. Just make sure that's center. Sometimes if you fold it too, that'll help. Sometimes I go ahead and bring it over to the iron and fold it and make sure I get my crisp center lines there, but this way works too, just using a ruler. All right, that looks good, I like that. All right, the next thing I'm gonna do is tape on some scrap stabilizer that I have right onto my fast frame. And I just use good old painter's tape. I use painter tape a lot. So go ahead, tape it on. Cut that long edge. I'm just going to go ahead and fold it right under. Make sure it's nice and taut. I don't worry that it doesn't necessarily cover the bottom of the frame. I'm going to be embroidering up here, and it's never been a problem for me. Just as long as I have at least 3 sides secured really well, that bottom has never been a problem for me. All right, so we're stabilized. I'm using this 505 this time. A lot of times I get my adhesive spray from Walmart and they don't carry the 505, they carry a different brand, which I actually really like, but they didn't have it this time around, so I jumped over to Hobby Lobby, and I guess a lot of people use this one, and it's been working just fine. So I spray it with a decent amount of spray. And what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna turn it inside out. Now, if you had a stocking that had the collar that could flip up, you would flip it up instead of turning the entire stocking inside out. So the collar would be inside out, if that makes sense. So the collar would be like this. Say this was your stocking, right? So like, we'll be this way. Most stockings go this way. So this, say your stocking had a collar like this. You wouldn't turn the whole stocking inside out. You would just flip this part, and then you would be able to embroider down here. I'll kind of show you what I'm doing. But this one, because the collar is attached and it doesn't flip up, we're turning the entire stocking inside out. Make sure you get the front down, and then because this frame has like a square top to it, I just go ahead and make sure I'm straight along the top. I want to make sure that my crosshair there is kind of as centered as I can get it. Just kind of eyeball it. All right, that looks good. So I don't trust that just that adhesive to hold it down. I'm gonna pin it, but just so you guys can kind of see It's kind of hard to show you guys. All right, so I don't know if you can see the crosshair in there. You'll be able to see it later, probably when I bring it over to the machine. But anyways, you just kind of stick it down. Oops, where did my pin cushion go? There it is. And then I'm gonna pin at the edges to make sure that it stays secure. You wanna make sure your pins are well out of the way of where you're going to be embroidering your name. So I know this stocking has a very wide collar, so I know I'm good up top to pin. It's not gonna be near there. The Caroline, that one was that was a long name, so that went pretty much edge to edge of my frame, and I had to really watch and be careful that I had to trace quite a few times to make sure my needle wasn't gonna hit the frame. So that made, even pinning, you didn't want to pin too close to the edge. I'm like on the edge where the needle would be. But the rest of my names are smaller and have a little bit more room, so I'm good to pin on the sides. All right, it's pinned, so see how I'm able to move this top fabric around? That is how we're going to embroider a name that is, I mean, rather large, really any of the names. So when it's on the machine, I'm going to carefully, please be very careful, because if you put your hands anywhere near that needle, you could put yourself in the hospital. So please, very dangerous. Please be careful. Make sure your hands are well out of the way of the needle, but we're gonna actually be holding the fabric, and I'll actually move as the name goes. Feel free, if you're not comfortable, and I often do with that larger name, Caroline, I turned my speed way down because I didn't want to even risk like accidentally having my hand in the way. So turn your speed down. It's okay to do things a little bit slower to be safe, you know? All right, so groove down, stabilize. I'm gonna install it with my screw. All right, it's ready for the machine. We'll hop over there and I'll show you guys what I do. Okay, I have it installed on my machine. You can kind of see my crosshair when I was rubbing it. See, that's the thing about the chalk, is it does rub off, so you don't ever have to worry that it's gonna be stuck on there for your client, but you do have to be careful you don't rub it off before you center it on your machine. But here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna come over here. I just did Tatum, so we're gonna switch the name. I already have them loaded. Let's go ahead and do Josh, because it is the shortest name, just for the sake of showing you guys. All right, so that's loaded on. We're gonna do a trace to get it on needle 1. All right, see, if you just let it go by itself, do you see the problems we would probably have? So we're gonna have to hold this back. And I'm not gonna be able to do this one-handed, and my tripod is MIA right now because my kids took off with it. So you're gonna pull your needle down and do your trace. I can already see it's off a little bit, so I'm gonna need to come over. All right, that to me, I know it's probably hard to see, but that looks good and centered. So yep, fits in there nice. All right, and it's gonna start over here, so I'm gonna make sure that when it's stitching out that J, I'm gonna hold this fabric like this, making sure I'm far away from the needle, and I'm just gonna move over as it comes over. And that's how we're gonna do it. Okay, just in case you guys don't know how to change colors on your machine, I'm using this gold here. It's in the 3rd position on my machine. So I'm gonna go, this is a embroidery machine. I have the 12 needle, the mirror. So you come over here to that color change, and I'm gonna put it on needle 3. Don't worry about these colors not matching up with those colors, because you'll make yourself crazy trying to match them. You could, I think it's this one, could come over here and change what color they are, but that is just too much. Just make sure you have the right color in the right position. So number 3, I want gold. And then we're ready to get started. All right. So just make sure your fingers are nowhere near where that needle is. You could even probably use chopsticks to hold this back, or you could possibly pin it back, but I would just pin it like maybe one letter at a time. Like I could pin this here, let it stitch out the J, and just kind of be ready to stop it, and then move the fabric over, pin it again, stitch out the next letter and stop it. I mean, there's definitely probably safer ways to do this. Please, if you're going to do it this way, please be careful. That's going pretty fast. I got it up to 750. I think when I did Caroline, I had it at like 600, doing a lot slower. Like that was edge to edge on this hoop. This is my shortest name. I feel a little bit more comfortable doing it at a faster speed, but even still, please be careful. A lot of times when I had a single needle machine, you had to do a lot of things this way. So if you have a single needle machine, or if you ever worked on a single needle machine and you didn't have the ability to do things the way you do on a multi-needle, you're probably very familiar with this technique. Because this is a shorter name, I absolutely could have gotten a shorter or a more narrow hoop and hooped this a more traditional way, but just because I wanted to show you guys on the video, I'm going to go ahead and do it this way. Also, because I'm already using this hoop, I'm already doing a lot of the longer names this way, and it's a set, I just kind of sticking with the same technique. I just pulled it off. Here it is. Ta-da! And because this is a small one, honestly, you could probably even find a way to pin, but I just wasn't sure exact. I mean, you could probably find a way to pin this all back, but I really wasn't sure how large it was going to be and if it would work, because some of them would have been probably too large to do that, and it's just, ooh, sorry. It's just better to like be able to move as it's embroidering. Just please be careful that you don't get your fingers in the way. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull my pins out. I used tearaway stabilizer today with this project. A lot of times I use scraps for names because they're all just kind of small. So most of the time I'm using scraps, and it doesn't really matter if you use a cutaway or a tearaway. A lot of the stockings, like I said before, have the collars in them. Did I get all the needles out? So I'll use cutaway a lot of times because that's going to be all hidden underneath and folded in. Because this one doesn't have the collar that folds down, when they open their stocking, they're going to see that lettering inside. And so I just kind of thought a tearaway might just look a little bit cleaner. And I know it's, if you wear it, don't tear it, but it's not a real stock. You're not going to put it on your foot, so you're not wearing it. So I figured either way, I think whatever you have on hand, whatever scraps you want to use, but today I used tearaway. So that's the inside of it. You can kind of pull all these little things out and clean it up. Flip it around. And there it is. And I will probably go ahead and press it with an iron. I'll put, I usually use like a scrap piece of stabilizer or something, just so I don't melt those satin stitches, you know. But just give it a little press and it's ready to go back to its client, to my customer. So I have a few more for this one that I have to do, but they're gonna look really nice on their fireplace this Christmas season. So I hope this helped some of you. I hope you enjoyed this little short tutorial. Just have a Merry Christmas.